cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave. I'ma get right. Get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the...
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I got to give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
Our league. Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
Best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
And you're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right cause I roll my sleeves up.
What up? What up? What up, world? We are back. I'm Anthony, aka Rasta. This is Get Right Fantasy Network. I'm here with my boy Phil Ruskin from The Extra Point, joining me on this lovely Friday, concluding with our Friday night football game, which we'll get into here in just a second, man. How you doing tonight on this lovely Friday evening?
Bro, we got Thursday night football was a banger. We got a special edition from Brazil Friday night, which was a banger. I mean, how else could you start week one, man?
It was awesome, man. Ravens Chiefs Thursday night, as you said, man. Ravens 20, Chiefs 27. We were a toenail away, a Kevin Durant toenail away from a 2-point conversion to see if they win or lose either way. I like that he was going to at least go for it and wasn't going to go into overtime. So that would have been very interesting. I wanted to see that happen so bad. And then, of course, we just got done with this one here, a whole different type of ending, which just shows you the NFL script is crazy. Packers 29, Eagles 34 in a just display of fantasy points. Interestingly enough, concentrated in kind of just two areas for the most part, which we'll get into here in a second, I'm sure. But to kind of recap these things instead of just open talking about it, I wanted to play kind of a little game. You know, I like the games you play over there on The Extra Point, and thought we had to bring that here to get right a little bit here, man. So I wanted to come up with my version of it. Panic or nah on these guys here, man. So Andrews, who went 2 for 2 with only 14 yards.
You pulled your mic out. This guy. This is why we can't have nice things. Nope. So we had Thursday night football. I know, Rasta, we got a show sheet up, so I know what Rasta's going to get into here in just a minute. But I just really quickly just want to give a quick take on the games overall. Look, if you had Saquon Barkley, man, what an introduction, what a performance. I think for me, it was expected he would get the workload, but I can't believe the 3 touchdowns, almost 4 touchdowns at the end there. Tremendous showing from him, and I think it's just a good expectation of what you're going to see primarily the remainder of the season. Obviously, I don't know that 3 touchdowns will be sustainable every week, but he's the workhorse. There's no competition. I did like how Will Shipley was on the field and Kenny Gainwell were on the field at the same time. But obviously, the bulk of the Lions' share of the work is going to go through Saquon. So good to see A.J. Brown involved. Good to see Devonta Smith getting some run. I'm excited for Kellen Moore's offense. Good game, good teams, and lots of points. And that's, obviously what, as fantasy players, what we're excited about, what we're hoping for.
For sure. I assume you're kind of just giving the recap. I didn't hear any of what you said.
I was
so
just talking about Saquon being the guy. I mean, I don't think there was any surprises there. I think it was more for me in week one. What I'm looking for is just kind of some confirmation or some answers to questions I think we all had from preseason, from camp, that we're wanting to see play out. Maybe not all of the answers in week one, but at least some indications, some clues, if you will. And obviously by week 2, week 3, we should have some answers to some of these big questions we've got.
For sure. So I'll try to get back to this whole panic or nah. Maybe I'll edit that whole section out. I got so excited, of course, ripped out the cord. But so as I was trying to say, and we'll get into the Saquon thing too, so that conversation will be continued. But Mark Andrews, man, 2 catches, 2 targets, only 14 yards, man. I say likely goes off. 9 catches on 12 targets for 111 and touchdown, almost 2 touchdowns, as we talked about. So are you panicking or nah on Mark Andrews?
No, I'm not panicking, and I think there's a couple things really quickly to consider. Number one, he was in a car accident 2 weeks ago. Regardless of what the severity of that car accident was, it clearly shook him up. He missed some practice time. And then this week, he was limited in practice. So I don't think it's carrying or stemming from the car accident. I do think there's something going on with him internally. And at the end of the day, Harbaugh came out. A lot of people in the media came out and said, expect them to run a lot of 12 personnel. And we talked about it all offseason. Who is the wide receiver 2 for the Ravens? Because it doesn't look like it's Rashad Bateman right now.
No.
Right?
And Devontae Walker wasn't even active.
And so, I mean, they showed you pretty clearly, like, Lamar's going to run it. And I think Isaiah, like, I want to invert your question. I'm actually more excited for what likely could become. I think he ends up finding a role. So I do think you can play both of them. It's not wise. It's not going to be something you want to do, but outside of Flowers and Lamar's running ability, there's nothing there. So I think it's Andrews and likely coexisting, and I think they can coexist. And like all things, it's week 1. Let's not overreact. Mark Andrews is he's fine.
That's what we're here to do, right? This is our overreaction check, segment here for you guys.
It just didn't go the way you wanted it to go. And you know what? Not every player in week 1 is going to blow up, and then all of a sudden, you know how the season goes. It's going to be just fine.
For sure. So that kind of leads me to the next point. Derrick Henry, are we panicking on him? You mentioned Lamar, you mentioned Zay Flowers, you mentioned likely Andrews. Not once did I hear you say anything about King Henry. Are you panicking or not on Henry?
I'm not panicking on him either, for the simple reason of what I saw. Again, I mentioned this a couple seconds ago or a minute ago too, right? Like, I want to know some answers to questions. One of the biggest questions I had, if not the biggest question I had, was around Derrick Henry's usage. And I think you saw exactly what I expected him to be, right? Limited usage, obviously got the goal line work. I said on my show, I did some over under, some higher lowers on my show and a parlay card that I actually put together. And that's part of, my Thursday show. And I said Derrick Henry over the 0.5 touchdown. He scored. I think actually what it confirmed for me is, if Derrick Henry doesn't get a touchdown, you're going to be frustrated every single week, because what I heard, and I normally watch games on mute, and I do it because, to be honest, the announcers just irritate me. But I did have the volume on last night, and a couple things I heard was they want Lamar to look like this. They want Lamar to run this way. They're all these different times that he ran, they would have a comment after his long runs. I know it's not always the best, because obviously injury risk increases the more he runs, but that's his game. He's lighter. That's what he talked about in the offseason. So I'm not panicking about Derrick Henry. I'm just keeping the floor very high and the ceiling a little bit lower, or maybe right around where you drafted him is probably what you should expect. He's touchdown dependent. If he gets double-digit touchdowns this season, it's going to be a good season. It just might be weeks where he goes 3 for 34 with no touchdown.
Yeah. So it's interesting, like you said, 1346, and then Justice Hill used a lot. 6
that was the other thing,
catches, 8 targets, man, 52 yards, 18-yard long catch. Yeah.
If you're in a dynasty league and you've got Justice Hill, and you've got him on one of your dynasty
teams, hold him forever, right?
Yeah, just stashed on your bench. I think he's gonna, at least what we saw in week 1. Again, it's a small sample size. It's only one game. I think he's gonna be relevant. I'm not sitting here beating the drum, go get Justice Hill off the waiver wire, spend all your fab and throw him in your lineup. But when we get into bye weeks, when injuries start happening, when we get later into the season, you might be happy to have Justice Hill, especially on your dynasty teams, because he looked useful.
Mm-hmm. Now, the one thing you have to remember is this just the same role what was going on between Henry and Tajay Spears in Tennessee, right? We saw that last year when Tennessee was close game or out ahead. The few times they were, he had great games, finished top 15 or better, right? And then the games they were trailing or behind, that's why Tajay Spears, had so much value as a standalone flex last year, because when they were behind, he was going to get used, just like we saw there, of course, being in a shootout against Mahomes, rematch of that AFC game. It's so funny in hindsight. You're like, yeah, duh. Of course they're Justice Hill's going to play, right? But I mean, I think we were all shocked while it was so close and early, the usage there. So that just shows you they have a clear rotation that they want to do. Maybe keep them fresh, expecting
and keep Mitchell's on the PUP to start the season. So I expect him to get worked in once he's released from the PUP and on the active, on the game day roster. sure. So it's still early, but yeah, I think
All
for
right.
at least 4 weeks, he'll have some relevance.
All right, I got two more here, so I know we're getting a little long-winded with it, but we'll try to power through it here. But again, this is why we're here. We're here to talk football with you guys, man. If you guys do have questions, comments, make sure you drop them in the chat. So my next panic or nah player is going to be Travis Kelce, man. Again, both Andrews and Kelce, drafted as top 3 or 4 tight ends. 3 for 3, only 34 yards, 1 drop, which was kind of crucial at the time.
Yeah.
And then you had guys like Noah Gray going 3 for 3 for 37. And then, of course, we saw, Rice and Worthy get worked in here, which we'll talk about here in a second. But are we panicking or not on Travis Kelce?
Not panicking on this one either. I think it's the same thing that you've heard all offseason. Travis Kelce's going to be used in the most important times. Their goal is to win another Super Bowl or 2, and then I think he's calling it a career.
Yeah,
so
he kind of said 2 years. He just released something.
He just said that today, talking about 2 years left and blah, blah, his age, his contract, etc. It all lines up, right? Who knows what'll happen with Taylor Swift. But I'm not panicking. At the end of it all, it's still Kelce. It's still the go-to for Mahomes. It's just Mahomes didn't have a great night. I mean, that was the truth of it. If you look at Mahomes, right? I played against Mahomes in my main dynasty league, and I think he put up in a half
points.
That one's a 4-point format. I think it was 15.3, so it's probably 18 or 6 point. Yeah, I mean so it wasn't a great night throwing the ball. So no, I'm not panicking on Travis Kelce.
All right, there we go. So last one here involves the game we just watched here tonight. A kind of late add to the show sheet here. But are we panicking or not on these Green Bay wide receivers after this Jordan Love injury? Where do we stand right now?
Well, let's see what happens, and let's see what it looks like. A high ankle sprain.
Okay.
It didn't look like his knee. Now again, we just saw. I don't remember who it was, but poor kid. I can't remember his name. But one of the kids on Hard Knocks, the Bears running back, the kid that was going to medical school, whose name escapes me now off the top of my head, but had kind of just a normal tackle and didn't look that bad. And all of a sudden, he tears his ACL. Right.
Oh, Tariq Cohen?
No, not Tariq Cohen. It's just one of the kids from this season. But anyway, let's see what Jordan Love's injury is. He walked off under mostly his own power. I think the one thing that
2 coaches there next to him.
He had his arms up. He had his arms up.
Yeah.
No stretcher, no cart. Right. So
right.
That's a good sign.
Somewhere in between there. Yeah.
And a long week. It's not like you're playing
2 extra days.
A couple extra days. I think the challenge for me, and this is again, it's one sample size, is Jaden Reed that guy? Or was just this week Jaden Reed's week, and then next week it's Dobbs, and then the week after it's Wicks, right? That's what we've been,
which is almost kind of what we expected, right? So I'm not shocked, either. Yeah. Like I was just, Watson got his touchdown, which I was happy about. As you go, right. You guys know I'm highly invested. Red zone target, missed a potential other one. I think that earlier in the game where he slipped, just barely missed it there. So he was that close to a 2 touchdown game.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what we expect, out of these guys. Dobbs was targeted in key situations, things like that. So yeah, I mean, these guys are going to be involved. I mean, I was actually surprised to see Bo Melton and Dontavian Wicks involved and get as much targets as they were getting. And they were playing sometimes when Watson wasn't on the field, which was almost shocked me. I don't know if that's because they're kind of, still maybe easing him in. It is the first, he's one of those explosive guys. They don't want to just go crazy with his hamstrings, right? Like all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Maybe that's part of his process and part of what the solution is to keep his, hamstrings. Maybe he is kind of on a pitch count or something like that.
Right.
So again, week 1, this is what we're looking for and questions that we'll see. So yeah, we're definitely got to keep an eye out on this Jordan Love injury. It is definitely going to be a topic here throughout the weekend. So obviously we wish the best for fantasy purposes. Cause again, this was a shootout, man. I mean, 70-yard touchdowns, 50 yards. I mean, this is just great, man. This is what we want to see, man. Football's back.
It is back.
Baby. All right. So we'll continue to move on here with our next segment. I stole this actually from the Extra Point. Literally just straight up this time, not even just the idea or the concept of a game, but just literally took the exact segment. And since I have the man here himself,
didn't even ask me to borrow it.
I just threw it on the show sheet and I was like, I know he's going to be down. Like, what's he going to say? No. So I'm flipping the script on him today. We're bringing here legit or bullshit here to the show. So Xavier Worthy, 2 touchdown game, limited usage. Is he a must start in 2 wide receiver and or 3 wide receiver leagues moving forward?
No, I think to me it's bullshit. And I'm going to say this really quickly. I have been down on Xavier Worthy in Dynasty. I'm all over him in best ball. What I saw last night confirmed what I believed. He's a big play guy. The touchdown rate will not be sustainable. The problem is the answer to the question of is Xavier Worthy legit was not answered last night because he scored 2 touchdowns on 3 touches of the football. And that to me is a problem, right? He ran 1 time for 21 yards. He was 2 for 3 for 40 something yards and a touchdown, right? Or whatever his numbers were. So all of the Xavier Worthy truthers out there are going to go, see, I told you he was that. I told you he was that dude. I'm him. And all the people that are concerned about Xavier Worthy are going to go, he didn't have any usage. If he doesn't score those 2 touchdowns, he had a disgusting night. He would have had an atrocious fantasy night. And the jury's still out. The answer to the question has not been revealed.
Yeah. Well, what we did see on the flip side of that, Rashee Rice comes out balling, right? My question to you, legit or bullshit, should Rashee Rice have been drafted as a top 5 wide receiver ahead of Justin Jefferson and AJ Brown?
Top 5's heavy for me, so that answer to me is bullshit. But the legitimacy of the question is, after that tier break behind AJ Brown,
we saw him ball. I did write this question before I saw the game tonight, just for the record.
Sure, but I would still have AJ Brown there anyway, right? But
okay,
would you take Rashee Rice over Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, that next tier of guys that were going at that 1-2 turn? We haven't seen those guys play yet this weekend, obviously, but as of last night, what I saw is, regardless of the answer to that question, Rashee Rice is that dude for Kansas City. He's their guy.
Yeah, talent, role, attached to Mahomes, Andy Reid offense, designing these touches, 7 catches on 9 targets for 103 yards, didn't even get in the end zone and put up almost 18 fantasy points. Imagine when he scores a touchdown or 2. If those touchdowns didn't go to Worthy and go to Rice, maybe he is that top 5 guy, at that point, maybe that changes the question. So good stuff there. We'll see what happens with the Rashee Rice. If you grabbed him, and you probably had to pull him early, we were talking about by the times the real drafts rolled around, you weren't getting him in the 7th round anymore. So hopefully you got him. Hopefully you plugged him in, and he got you just a nice game, especially in PPR. So last question I have for you here, legit or bullshit. Saquon should have been drafted as the RB2 behind Christian McCaffrey, given the offense he's part of, the offensive line upgrade that he has, and his talent and skill level as far as the ceiling we've been able to see him reach with attached, of course, to Jalen Hurts. Obviously, we saw a receiving touchdown today, 2 rushing touchdowns, several explosive plays, and he didn't even really hit a home run yet. And that's just what he was able to do in a pretty normal workload. So legit or bullshit, is Saquon should be the RB2 or should have been the RB2.
I thought I had a sneeze there, but apparently it won't come out.
That's why I went a little longer. I kind of tried to give you an extra second.
Yeah, my face gave it away there. Legit. And I say that quite simply. Yes, we just saw a monster performance. We haven't seen Gibbs or Brees, have a JT, have a CMC, have a run yet, Bijan. But you have no competition in the backfield. Whereas you do have CMC doesn't have competition either, but you do have Tyler Algier. You obviously have David Montgomery, right? And then JT, I believe Anthony Richardson's going to, cut into some of his ceiling. Saquon is, and still is for me, of the big 6, and I won't say dark horse because that's a little unfair, but he was of the big 6 running backs. He was my pick to be the overall RB1 this season because of that offense, Kellen Moore, the offensive line, the Eagles. So legit. Yeah, legit for me.
There you go.
100%.
Hey, that's spicy. I was trying to go for 3 for 3 there, and you 2 for 3. All right. Well, so we'll see. So good stuff, man. So that'll kind of just conclude. I mean, we could probably talk, 30 more minutes just on this, do a whole show just on these 2 games, just because this is all we've seen, and we've been waiting so long to talk football. But let's kind of move on. This is our start sit show here tonight. For those that are new to the channel, make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button for us. And if you're already subscribed, hit that like button for us. It helps us out just as much. I see a couple of you guys dropping some questions in the chat. Please continue to do that. We will have a live Q&A section here at the end of our start sit breakdowns. If you do want your question to be read right away and don't want to wait for it, and you want that answer here soon, you can always drop us a super chat, which will get us to basically kind of at our next break, get to your question right away. If not, you do have to go, you can always just rewatch it tomorrow and, just get your answer there. But yeah, drop your questions, and we're going to, of course, go back and get to as many as we can here at the end of the show. So for those that are new here to Get Right Fantasy, Phil, you want to tell the folks kind of our show schedule, what we got going on here? Are you muted, or is it just me?
Sorry, that was me. I was burning up in this room, man. I take my hoodie
Oh,
off.
okay.
Yeah,
You're spitting fire. That's why you're spitting fire in that last
man,
segment.
Hot takes, boy. We got shows 6 days a week. You can catch Rasta, our boy Rasta, and Frank host Overreaction Monday show. That's at 9 p.m. Pacific. Also the week 1 recap, and they're going to be talking through the top waiver wire ads, getting it ready for week 2. On Tuesday, make sure you tune in at 7 p.m. Pacific time for our boy Tycoon hosting the Fantasy Boardroom. Wednesday nights at 9 p.m., Rasta and Frank are back to host the Roster Management and Trade Talk Show, discuss the buy, sell, hold players you should be targeting. On Thursday night, it's your boy. It is me, Phil Ruskin, 4 p.m. Pacific time, as I host the Extra Point, leading right up to kickoff for Thursday Night Football. We're going to be doing Q&A. We're going to be doing DFS lineups. We're going to be doing some underdog over-under, that I like. And hopefully, if you guys are, please bet responsibly, but only bet what you can lose. But if that is a part of your fantasy portfolio, make sure that we get you right and get you some takes that hopefully will win you some money.
Let's go. For sure. And for those of you guys who know and here with us here on Fridays, this was a little abnormal Friday with the Friday game, but starting next week, we will have still 2 different shows. We're going to break the start-sit shows into 2 separate shows, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern with Mike and Kendall. They'll kind of be there for you East Coast folks, those weekly must-start and sit players, going through those like we're going to do here tonight. And then just like we're here right now, a little later, but normally we'll be 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Phil and I are going to host part 2 of the Must Start Sit show, going through the remaining games of that week, just letting you guys know who to start, who to sit. And then, of course, anything we can't answer on these Friday shows, because we're waiting for last minute injury, updates or holdout situations here. We will, of course, Mike will be with you Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific to go through the active and inactive list, and he'll do a live start sit Q&A, and even throw in a little casual DFS lineup as well too. So again, make sure you guys are subscribed to us, hit that notification bell so you don't miss these shows when they drop. And we're here, we're live, we're always taking as many questions as we can. So yeah, and if you kind of want to get through some of this other stuff, check the description. We will drop the timestamps and chapters in there. And the links and everything are there for my boy Phil and our boy Kendall over at the tavern, and of course Tycoon at the boardroom. Just check out the description. And yeah, why don't you tell them again about the super chats and we'll get this thing going. I think you're muted again. You're so kind to mute yourself while I'm talking.
What the hell is going on with my stuff?
I don't know, man. You're good on that.
Auto muting or something. So anyway, super chats, apparently not super mute, but super chat. If you guys want to get your questions answered, immediate response, other than the live Q&A at the end of the show, go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. Be sure to include league size, type of scoring, PPR, half format, 4.6 point. We may not be able to answer all of them, but that super chat ones we obviously will. You know what it is. It's time to roll our sleeves up. Let's get into it, man. I'm ready to talk about some of these games, sit, start, and obviously finish up the week.
For sure. So before we get into the next 8 games that you guys, we left off on, there are a couple things on Wednesday we weren't quite sure of. So I kind of want to hit those real quick before we get into the 8 games here. So kind of, from our Wednesday start sit show, the big information news kind of came out today with Jamar Chase. He's technically listed as questionable with rest and contract situation as the designation. From what it sounded like, he finally talked to the press today. Sounds like he's going to play pretty much. The thing that was interesting is we got kind of conflicting reports. It looks like he was quoted as saying like, "Oh, he'll be ready to play, but will be on kind of a limited, pitch count." But then I saw another report come out where it was like, "Oh, he's ready to go and to play a full workload if needed." Higgins was out. Dealing with a hamstring injury that he got on Thursday. He's been listed as doubtful. I think he might have been upgraded to questionable there. So with that said, I want to ask you, are you starting or sitting Jamar Chase against New England if he is active, of course?
I mean, you don't have a choice, right? Like Higgins isn't going to play. You drafted Jamar Chase in the first round, and I think you have to start him, and you just have to expect the ceiling could be pretty low in this first week.
Makes sense.
That's where it's going to be.
Right. At least it's week 1, right?
You'll hope when they get in the red zone, he gets the touchdown. That's what you'll hope. So the 4 catches for 60 yards that he gets, you hope one of those is the touchdown on top, and that'll make your week.
At least be okay to get started given the situation.
Yeah,
hopefully
exactly.
He gets signed. They say they're not too far off. So at least the things that are being said weren't like Ayuk, and he ended up signing. Like, this all kind of seems positive. So we'll see what happens. As you mentioned, Teague is listed as doubtful. Doesn't sound like he's going. If he doesn't go, are you starting or sitting Joe Burrow?
In a 1 quarterback league, he's probably your only quarterback on the roster. So you're starting him. It's still New England. It's not a great offense. I don't think we're going to talk about this game tonight because we talked about it last week. So I'll just say this really quickly. It does make Zach Moss and Chase Brown, if you have those guys, a little more interesting, simply because you don't have the big receiving weapons. And then Yoshi Andre Yashovas is the free square on your DFS cards this week at $3,000. He's going to be very popular, but it's a free square to get some salary savings. I'm not starting him in my managed redraft leagues or any of my dynasty leagues, but in my DFS leagues and my tournament GPPs and my cash plays, I'm absolutely taking the shot.
All right. What about Burton? Obviously, if Yoshivav moves up, that means Burton moves up as well too. We saw what he did in the preseason. He was looked at in the red zone. Caught 2 touchdowns in the preseason. Would he be a sneaky play somewhere?
I think it's thin, right? Like, even Yoshi is pretty thin. So it's like I said, if I don't want to start one, I put it this way: I'd rather move off all of them, and if I have the running backs, I'd put the running backs into a starting spot because I think their roles could get elevated. Otherwise, the pass catchers in this week, we don't know what they are, but I think the Bengals are probably still, even without the big boys, probably still good enough to win this game. And if they win on the ground, fine.
Yeah, I think it is the lowest projected game at like 39.5 points. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But yeah, so not a lot of scoring expected, and the scoring that is expected is definitely on the Cincinnati side. So last other kind of one here, and then we'll get into our this week's start, or the second half of the start sit. Josh Downs officially ruled out. Does this mean you can start or sit AD Mitchell or Alec Pierce? Like, neither, or maybe both of them against Houston, a potential shootout?
I think if you believe it's a shootout, you can start Mitchell. I wouldn't start Pierce. Mitchell seems to be the guy. I'm not really in on Michael Pittman this week. I like the Texans defense. So I think it's actually a sneaky play that Mitchell could be the better of the 2 wide receivers as they try to eliminate Pittman and say, look, Mitchell in his first game has to beat us because we know they're going to be focused on the run game with JT and Richardson. So I think there's going to be some open looks for Mitchell, and he showed that last real game in preseason, man. He lost his helmet and still managed to get across the goal line. So yeah, I think he's a flex play if you need him.
Very nice, very nice. All right, man. So let's get into it here. We'll start breaking down this. I want to say this week. Normally it would be this week. Like, normally we'd only be doing the second half for us here. So we'll get into the first game. Where are we at timestamp wise? 28 something. No, you're good. So let's get into Panthers at Saints, man. We have the Panthers coming in, given 4 points to the Saints, who are favored here with a 41.5 point over under. Division battle. Obviously, we're sitting we're sitting a lot of guys in this game. Not a very fantasy positive game. To me, I only have the really must start as Chris Olave. But a couple people I do want to talk about. Let's start with running back here, Chuba Hubbard. Could he be a sneaky start here against the Saints?
I mean, I think if you have no other choice, you have to start him. I would stay away. I mean, I know he's the only guy. Miles Sanders is pretty useless. Obviously, Brooks is on the pup, but I just don't like the game environment. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think this game probably hits the under. You're really hoping that Hubbard finds the end zone, and if he doesn't, I don't know that it's going to be enough to really be a difference maker for you in your lineup this week.
Yeah, I have him as my RB30, so like maybe if you need a flex and you're in a weird situation, non-BPR, something like that, maybe you can sneak him in if you really are in that type of situation and then like a zero. Because remember, he was really kind of drafted as an RB2 in a lot of zero RB builds.
Correct.
As kind of like that Jerome Ford, Chuba Hubbard, and even cheaper version of Jerome Ford.
Yep.
So I kind of have him at RB30. We'll see what happens here against the Saints D.
Yep.
Also, speaking of which, Deontay Johnson, what do you do here? Again, not too high of a scoring expected game at just 41 points, but can you find a way to get Deontay Johnson in your lineup this week?
Yeah, I think you can flex him, especially in PPR. I mean, look, I'm not a big Adam Thielen truther. I do believe the majority of the target share from Bryce Young is going to go to Deontay Johnson. It is Xavier Legette's first game ever, so we don't know what he is yet. And obviously at the tight end position, it's Tommy Tremble and Jatavian Sanders. So I think in a PPR flex, he's fine. I think Deontay's going to be fine.
Yeah, I have Deontay as my wide receiver 38. You guys know I haven't really been as high on him. Just in this offense, I think his touchdown upside's limited. I mean, he does get open, and when open, Bryce, and when given the time, Bryce has been able to deliver a good ball, catchable ball. But we'll see what ends up happening. They've obviously upgraded this line, a bit here this year, so we'll see what happens. But sadly, as I'm looking at my rankings here this week, I had Jaden Reed as my wide receiver 36. So that sucks.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Oh man, that sucks. All right, so let's get into it here. The other side of the ball, some players to discuss here. Alvin Kamara against this Panthers defense, weren't great, of course, last year. But on the flip side of it, this offensive line isn't projected great as well. It's going to be tough, obviously, with Ramczyk out. The big key missing piece there. I think that's even more so, missing hurting the passing game as well too. Yeah. But Kamara, is he startable as an RB2 or a flex this week, or you trying to go elsewhere?
I would like to go elsewhere. Unfortunately, I think a lot of zero RBs. He is your RB2. Brian Burns is gone on the other side of the defense from Carolina. He's in New York now, so that does give me a little bit more confidence. But again, I think this game hits the under. Ryan Ramczyk out for the year. It's Derek Carr. I think you can start Kamara in a PPR as your RB2. I wouldn't flex him if you have two other running backs. I just don't like the game environment. And transparently, because I can see the show sheet, I'm not starting any of the Saints wide receivers or Taysom Hill until I see it. We know Clint Kubiak's the offensive coordinator now. There's supposed to be more pre-snap motion. Okay, give me a week, and then I'll figure out, other than Olave, if I want to start the Saints. Yeah.
Fair. Yeah. So again, we're sitting Bryce Young, we're sitting Sanders, Thielen, Xavier Legette, Jatavian Sanders, although he will be getting his first action today with Tremble and whoever else is there out. So it'll be him and actually converted wide receiver Jordan Matthews there as tight end this week. And like you mentioned, we're sitting Derek Carr and Jamal Williams. Again, interesting play with Miller being out, but I have him as a sit as well.
Yeah.
All right. So we will move on here to Vikings, who are favored by 1.5. I think only like the second team so far that we've discussed, road team that's been favored here. Vikings.
Are they favored, or are the Giants just that bad that they're like, no, you can't possibly win even at home?
Right? Like, I mean, you normally get, I wasn't going to go there, but since you did, I mean, usually you do get 3 just for being the home team. So the fact that it's 1.5 swung the other way, that's kind of telling you what it is. And again, the Vikings don't even really have that great of a defense, right?
No.
This is, one of those teams, we're kind of is almost a great fantasy team because it's that nice mixture of talented offensive players. Maybe not as much at the quarterback position. We'll get in that in a second. But, and kind of a bad defense, which, provides some shootout opportunities and points being put up on the board. So let's get into this here. Again, Vikings favored 1.5 at the Giants with an over-under of 41 points. We have obviously the must start of Justin Jefferson. He's in your lineups regardless. I have the guys to discuss here. Let's start with Aaron Jones at the running back position. Are you getting Jones in your lineups here this week as like an RB2 flex player?
I mean, I don't have Aaron Jones on my teams because I don't believe in Aaron Jones, but I think so my answer is no. But
don't have to make this decision.
But I think for the people that do, you have to play him because you drafted him as your RB2 because of where he was going ADP wise, and we just talked about it. The Vikings defense doesn't scare me, so I think he's probably touchdown dependent, but high floor, low ceiling.
There you go. I actually have Aaron Jones as my RB19 and Alvin Kamara as my RB20 and half PPR this week, literally back to back in this game here. So that's kind of where I'm at. And what else we got here? Jordan Addison, ankle injury, obviously, he was dealing with a couple weeks ago, has been limited, was upgraded here, but kind of came out earlier in the week. I think it was Thursday, yesterday, that it might have been a high ankle sprain that he's kind of dealing with here. So given that news, I mean, everything's saying and leaning towards he is going to be playing. Are you going to risk throwing him in as your lineup here as a wide receiver 3 or flex type player, or you want to sit him for a week and
I want to
kind of see what happens in this offense?
It's Sam Darnold. It's not a great game environment. I mean, these teams aren't very good, but at the same time, like, just because they're not good and they can't stop it doesn't mean there's shootout potential, because I don't think either offense can really score a ton of points. So it's hard for me to sit him because of where you probably drafted him, because he was such a screaming value given this potential suspension that we thought would come. He dropped a round or two, but the vibes aren't good.
Okay. Which, like you said, low scoring opportunity, which brings us to another interesting point. Obviously, high drafted player here this year, the rookie, asking the family to unretire number 1 so he can wear it. So obviously they think it was even worth him going to ask what you think. So I almost kind of want to change the question here. I assume we're starting Neighbors this week just based on where you drafted him. Possibly. No, yes, no.
Fire him up, baby.
Fire him up. All right. Okay. Up. So with that said, I wanted to ask a separate question here. Do you think plus or minus 10.5 targets in this game? Over under?
It's a good line. I'm going to take the under because of Daniel Jones.
Okay. I didn't say catchable targets, just targets in his general area.
I mean, it's going to probably be the over in his general area, because who the else is there to throw it to? I mean, look, Malik Neighbors this week, and the reason I say fire him up transparently is I want to see it. I think we're all excited to see it, but it's the same argument that we have now. I'm not putting him in the Justin Jefferson category yet, but it's the same argument we have about Justin Jefferson can bring Sam Darnold along. Sam Darnold does not have to have superior quarterback play to support a Justin Jefferson wide receiver 1 season. We believe that same thing about Neighbors. Neighbors can help Daniel Jones more than Jones is going to help Neighbors. To me, he can do special things with the ball in his hands. Even if it's a 3-yard screen and the kid runs 16 yards, 20, 30 yards on his own. So yeah, fire him up, put him in there.
Yeah, get him in there. Get him in there. With that
said, coach.
Exactly. Brings me to almost a sadder point after what we just saw with Saquon. Giants fans, classic Mike, sorry, I'm sure you're reeling right now. I saw the group chats going on. Yeah. You guys could have had a 3-touchdown Saquon Barkley type guy that just literally you could give him the ball and throw it to him, and he's just kind of put the team on your back. Now you're going to see a guy named Devin Singletary. So maybe not his name exciting, but are we finding a way to get Singletary in your lineups this week, or do you have him at, you got him as starter sit, or what are we looking
at? I mean, I like the appeal of the fact that there's really nobody else there. Tyrone Tracy didn't have the world's greatest preseason at all, and Eric Gray had one big run. So I don't really think there's a ton there to take snaps away. But again, there's just not much on this team. So if you're playing a decent defense, and I don't think that is the Vikings, but if you're playing a decent defense that has enough cover corners that can take Neighbors away and stack the box so that Singletary can't beat you, I don't know how the Giants win games. So I want to see it for a week before I'm, ready to, because I want to, again, that's one of those questions we had coming into the season. What is his volume and workload really going to be like? And I'd feel better I think he's touchdown dependent. I think that's what's going to make or break his week.
All right. Fair enough. I have him as my RB 26 right ahead of Javonte Williams. And if you guys know how I feel about Javonte Williams, just having him one spot ahead. I'm just like, again, it's the Minnesota defense. I don't know. They lost Daniel Hunter. I mean, that's a tough blow, man.
That's a lot.
On that line. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, he's going to get the workload. There's Tyrone Tracy. I mean, there's really no one there is going to compete with. So, I mean, 20 RB 20. I mean, I'm not getting crazy or anything, but if you're in this certain situation, I could throw him in a flex or as your RB2 in a 0 RB build.
Dallas Turner went to the Atlanta Falcons. Oh, wait, he didn't go to the Atlanta Falcons in the first round. He went to the Minnesota Vikings, so he could be all right. We'll see.
He might be all right.
This is an interesting defense here for the Vikings. We'll see what he does. Couldn't help but working in Atlanta. Dig.
There you go. All right, so I have Sam Darnold as a must sit, in one QB and super flex league, so that's why I didn't bring him up. I also have Ty Chandler as a sit. Maybe he could have been a player to discuss. Ball Powell, Munt, Daniel Jones, Robinson, and Slayton, the other Giants wide receivers. I have those all as sits. Anything there you disagree with? Or are you ready to move on?
Let's move on.
All right, let's do it. So bringing up our next game here is going to be Raiders at Chargers. We have the Chargers favored Not by 39.5, by 3.5. I apologize for the typo there. And we're looking at a 40-point over-under, which did actually drop. It opened up at 43.5. Obviously, the news here with Chargers wide receiver Palmer dealing with a knee issue. So I have really no one in this game as a must start. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that I'm really plugging and playing into the lineup. The exception might be Devontae Adams, simply because he is the volume guy. He's the alpha.
Let's discuss it.
We did. Yeah, I mean, we saw him be the number 2 overall target earner in the league last year behind CeeDee Lamb, and that was with mostly Aiden O'Connell. Now, Aiden O'Connell is the backup, meaning Antonio Pierce clearly believes that the Minshew is giving him a better chance to win. So if you're telling me that Minshew's giving us a better chance to win, sorry, I hate the Raiders. I'm a Niners fan, but
I was like, you're getting close there. Yeah. You were really assuming the Antonio Pierce rule.
I was in the coach. I could see the branding behind me.
There's the coach in you.
It was the coach in you. You're right. It's always the we, right?
Yeah.
Point being is that I think at the end of the day, you are going to see Devontae Adams just get peppered with as many targets as he can possibly take. So I think I don't think he's a must start, but you probably drafted him to start him, so he's probably in your lineup.
All right. Let's talk about Zamir White. Obviously, he was kind of taken in that RB dead zone here. Obviously, the opportunity with just Madison and who else? Lauby. And they still have Abdullah as well too.
I don't know. I haven't looked at that. I hope we don't have to look that deep on.
Yeah, I was going to say that'd be a little tough. I think it is though. Anyone in the chat want to let me know? But yeah. So are you finding a way to get White in your lineups?
No, I mean, I'm not. So this is another question that I have for the season is what is his pace? His pace at the end of the season was insane. We know it's not sustainable. What's his usage? What's his volume? I'm not getting him in the lineup this week, even though I don't think the Chargers are that good. This game kind of reminds me a little bit of the Saints-Panthers game. I think it hits the under. It's not a very sexy game. I don't know there's a ton of points here, and I just don't see these offenses going up and down the field. So I think White is touchdown dependent. If he's your RB3 on your roster depth chart, I'd sit him. But I know a lot of people are excited about him because they believe he's going to be a volume monster in the way that ended. So if he's your RB2, you're playing him and you're hoping that he does start this year the way he ended last.
All right. The only other guy that probably this offense will go through, because I do have Myers as a sit, is going to be Brock Bowers, new rookie tight end drafted. Looks like he's active and gonna be active here. I think he was dealing with something. I don't know. I didn't write it down. But I saw he was active today. So are you getting him in your lineups, or are you kind of waiting to see him? He was drafted like kind of early, like compared to other tight ends. I mean, he was being drafted almost like a starter.
It depends where you draft. Like, it depends when you drafted. If you drafted him if you drafted him 2 or more weeks ago, yeah, you drafted him as a starter. I saw him go as the tight end 10 in the league that I just had last week. So I mean
that's still a starter in a 12-man and 10-man league.
It's true, but like it's thin. I want to see it. Again, I'm not a big fan of Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, whoever. I mean, we know it's going to be Minshew at least for a bit, but I need to see it for a week. Sam Laporta broke the model last year. Historically, rookie tight ends start very slow. Laporta obviously had the career season, or the career year in his first,
It's also because of those 10 touchdowns, which I don't see this Raiders offense being able to do. Never. So that's my argument against Bowers. But
I'm with you. Yeah, I would if you can afford to sit him. If he's your only tight end, you're hoping he catches a touchdown.
Fire him up. Yeah, just like any tight end, basically at that point. All right, all right, good stuff. Njoku or Bowers?
Njoku.
I would have said Goddard or Bowers, but he's already played. Fairmouth or Bowers?
Fairmouth.
Okay. That's all. All right. So you mentioned just maybe not being able to move the ball up and down the field here. Obviously, we got to talk about the other side of the ball, Justin Herbert. Do you have him as a start here this week in 1 QB or Superflex leagues?
In Superflex, I think you probably have to because he's probably your QB2. In 1 QB, absolutely not. No, I mean, we need to. I think we've talked about this, so I won't make a huge point on this. But for those that are new, we just don't believe the Chargers are going to be able to run the ball this season the way that we expect that they're going to eventually be able to run the ball, which means Herbert's going to have to throw. I just don't see it this week. I mean, Palmer's banged up. We don't know what Quentin Johnston is. We've never seen McConkey. Sit him.
All right. Are you sitting all those guys? I mean, Gus, Dobbins, Palmer,
The
McConkey. Are any of these guys going to start?
one I would consider is Gus, and that's like if he's my RB2 because I went super heavy at early quarterback and super heavy wide receiver. Maybe I did draft a McBride or an Andrews early, and I punted that position. That's when I would
Maybe
start
you took
Gus.
like Jonathan Brooks before you actually took your RB2, and you had to reach and get Gus as your RB3 too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
We've seen those builds. All right. So, so good stuff there. So, of course, that leaves Minshew, Myers, Trey Tucker might be one of those DFS kind of plays, though. He might kind of get behind this Chargers defense and have a big play. I wouldn't be shocked if that were to happen.
Right.
That's kind of just been his boomer bust kind of MO. Mayer, who's been talked about as being in that 11 personnel. 11's 2 tight end, right? No, 11's 3 wide receiver, 12 personnel with the 2 tight end. I don't know why I did that. And then of course DJ Shark, it looks like he's out basically here. We won't mention his name with the 2 initials as the other wide receiver there. And then of course Hayden Hurst, the tight end there. We're sitting him. So we will move on. And we see you guys' chats in there. Week 2, we got you here. We will be doing live Q&A. So yeah, drop your guys' questions in the chat when we get to the live Q&A section. We will get to them. If you do have to go and want your question so you can interact with us live, drop us a super chat, and we will get to it in between these between these breakdowns. So we will move on here to our next game. We have Broncos at the Seahawks. We have the Seahawks favored by 6 with an over-under of 41.5 points. I have my must starts in this game as Ken Walker going up against this Broncos defense, who allowed, I think, the most points to running backs last year. I think that was a lot kind of based on that Miami Denver game. I think it was a little skewed. I have to kind of look at the DVOA, stat on that. But either way, it did happen. So you can't say it didn't. But yeah, so Walker I have as a must start here. I have DK Metcalf as a must start, but I kind of I have him in between that. Let's just give it a little quick discussion. Obviously the only reason I have him as a potentially even not starting him is he's getting Surtain. Obviously he signs the big contract here. Most likely will get shadowed by Pat Surtain. It's what they showed to do against them last time these 2 teams matched up. Has DK been able to grow? Will they put him in motion here this year with Ryan Grubbs, I believe, the new OC from Washington? Is it right? Am I right? I don't know. I got to get my coordinators correct. But yeah, the dude from Washington. So we're expecting a little more pass heavy, obviously, from what we've seen from Pete Carroll. So yeah, DK start or sit because of the matchup.
Start in 3 wide receiver and 2. I mean, I would evaluate what you've got. I don't like the matchup, but look, it's DK. He needs 1 play. I mean, that's the truth. I don't remember the game, but it was a year or 2 ago. DK was like literally 1 for 71 and a touchdown. That was, and then so boom, there you go. 13 points. 13 points. And it was like, oh my God, this dude did nothing the whole game, and then bang, 1 play, and you're like, well, there goes probably a 0. Yeah, it's all it takes.
Yeah, all it takes. All right, so we'll move on here. Obviously, looks like Lockett, who is dealing with a thigh, he's coming in as questionable here. I have him as a sit, but I want to talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba. Are you kind of thinking of him as a flex or maybe even as a wide receiver 3 this week, or do you have him as a sit?
Oh, I'm actually thinking about him because of the Lockett news. If Lockett were healthy, he's a sit for me because he's a question. He's one of those questions. What's the role going to be different than last year? New coach, new offensive coordinator, new scheme. They're at home, which is a hard place to play there in Seattle against a rookie quarterback. So JSN's interesting because I think he could catch you're talking about Surtain shadowing Metcalf. He could be open in some space here, catch a long one. I just don't know that the Broncos with Bo Nix and no receivers are going to be able to keep up. So I think it's a really good day for Kenneth Walker to just get 5,000 carries. You know what I mean? Like he's just Kenneth Walker is one of those like pretty locked into my lineups, and then in my DFS lineups, I'm staring his name down at his price point pretty hard right now.
All right, let's talk about the other running back here in this game, Javonte Williams. There was talk about will he even make the team? Obviously now by the time we get to the season, he's the RB1 and looking, the best he's had since his injury. Do you have him as a starter sit this week?
I actually am considering him as a start for the simple reason that I don't think that Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton are going to be able to throw it a ton. So I think it's a volume play in the flex. if he's in your 2 RB spots, it is what it is. I mean, I think if you can afford it, you'd love to sit him and wait a week to see what that committee looks like with McLaughlin. But as of right now, I think he's the starter. I think it's a volume play. Even if McLaughlin takes some carries away, I just don't believe in the Broncos passing attack. So I think it makes both those players interesting. If you lost T. Higgins and now all of a sudden you need a flex spot and he's on your roster, that becomes interesting now.
Okay, so you said you are still comfortable as an RB2 in certain builds, of course, your 0 and 0.
Yeah,
builds.
so I mean, if I started with Bijan or Brees and I didn't take anyone until, Javonte as my 2, then yeah, I think, again, I think this week, especially with Bo Nix, his first game on the road in Seattle in a tough environment, I think the running backs in Denver are interesting, similar to what we could see in Cincinnati this week.
All right, and then McCullough, is he flex worthy? In PPR, leagues, of course.
In PPR, yeah, in half, no.
Okay. And then you mentioned Sutton. Do you have him as a must start here this week, or you kind of want to see what happens?
He's a sit. Okay. I need to see Bo Nix. He's a sit for me, even though there's nobody else there. Look, if he didn't, he had a good touchdown season last year with Russell Wilson, but the volume and yardage was awful. So I don't. Okay. I'm not into it. Apparently,
Dolcett's been having a good offseason and camp and preseason. We know rookie, quarterbacks tend to lean on that tight end. Do you see Dolcich as a potential sneaky streaming tight end this week? Or
I think if there's a touchdown in this, I have this as like a 17, maybe 14 to 17 points for the Broncos. So if there's a touchdown, I think it goes on the ground. I don't think, and then maybe they throw one up for Sutton, jump ball situation. But I don't want Denver's tight end room.
Fair enough. And again, we will get to your guys' chats here. Again, if you want us to get to it in between our breakdowns, just go ahead and drop us a super chat. And before we get to our next game here, I just want to tell you guys, of course, a little bit about our boys here that help us do this thing here for you. UnderdogFantasy.com, man. It's the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports. I know I enjoy doing their best ball tournaments. We live stream them here all off season. For those that don't know, best ball leagues are leagues where you just kind of draft your team, and basically that's it. There's no season-long time commitment. There's no waivers, no trades, no setting your lineups each week. You can just literally draft hundreds of teams, as my boy Phil here has done this offseason, going crazy because it doesn't really replace like your regular redraft leagues or anything like that, or your managed leagues. So again, and really importantly, I like it because it helps you prepare for your actual managed leagues, just understanding, player ADP, and hopefully getting you to gain an advantage in your regular home league drafts. So now that it's kind of in season and some of those bigger tournaments aren't here, I do enjoy their pick'em contests where you could just basically pick higher or lower on any player stats like total yards or receiving TDs. And when you do sign up, you'll get a free pick here, the Dak Prescott pick, if you do sign up using that promo code GetRight before Sunday. It's basically plus or minus or higher or lower than a half a total yard. So it's basically a free pick there. So again, sign up using that promo code GetRight. You'll get that 50% deposit match, now up to $1,000 that they'll match you guys in bonus cash. And again, you'll get that special Dak pick'em entry, and go start having some fun. Let us know, and of course, just play responsibly. All right, so let's get into this next game here. We have, what are we going with next? Cowboys, Browns?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it, man. Cowboys, Browns. We have the do I have that right? Cleveland is favored by 2.5.
I have to look.
Is that where we're at? That can't be right. Did I mess that up? Hold on, guys. We got to check this. Cleveland's favored. I mean, I guess they are the home team, so they're going to get 3. So I guess technically Dallas is
2.5. Cleveland 2.5.
It is 2 and Cleveland 2.5. All right. Well, here we'll reset it, man. Cowboys at Browns. Browns favored by 2.5 with an over/under 41 points. I have my must starts here as CD, Dak, and Ferguson based on where you drafted them. I'm not looking to sit Cooks, Tolbert, Foreman, or Moore. Someone I'd like to discuss, though, is this Cowboys backfield. Rico Dowdle, Zeke, Dalvin Cook. Obviously, I have him as or I didn't have him on here. I had Cook and Cooks. I'm sitting both the chefs over with the Cowboys here this week. But yeah, Dowdle and Zeke, tell me about it. How are you feeling with these two?
Myles Garrett. That's all you have to say. Myles Garrett's the game. Look, Aaron Donald retired. I think that makes Myles Garrett potentially one of the best, if not the best, defensive pass rusher in the game. I don't want any part of this backfield. I don't think it's going to be very good. I actually, if you're into weekly picks or any survivor pools, confidence points, I have Cleveland winning this game. And that's more of me of like a stick it to Jerry all in my ass. So like you're just not
Little
like,
fandom
bro,
at
like,
play here.
yeah, like no, man, like I don't see it. First of all, they're talking about Dowdle potentially being the lead back. I won't say starter, but they'll say the lead back, and stay away. Not with Myles Garrett on the road. No.
There you go. All right, well, let's talk about the other side of the ball then. Jerome Ford is kind of one of those RB2 darlings this week. You have Dallas is projected as one of the top offenses. Micah Parsons, obviously these linebackers.
Yeah.
A lot of money spent on that side of the ball. But it's Ford's backfield. Foreman hasn't really shown or done anything this offseason to show he's going to get a significant role.
Yeah.
I've been touting all offseason that, Ford's been one of my guys.
He's
I've been, he's definitely my guy. I've touted his patch catching ability, which doesn't even really get talked about. Averaging almost 4 catches a game last year. So Jerome Ford, man, do you have him as a starter sit this week?
I have
against
him
Dallas?
I have him as a start even against Dallas because of exactly what you just said. The volume is there. They're at home. I think they're going to win the game. I think he's going to score a touchdown. I think he's probably their best opportunity to score a touchdown. So to me, it's just you just have to go into it with a lower ceiling because it's Dallas, right? But I think because there's no one else there and we're not super stoked on Deshaun Watson and the passing options, yeah, I think you can start him. I mean, look, if they were playing Minnesota, he'd be the start of the week, but I think you can still start him even against a tough Dallas defense.
All right, well, let's talk about another guy here on that side of the ball, Amari Cooper, their wide receiver 1. Had a little mini holdout at the beginning, but this guy's just constantly just produced wide receiver 1 numbers. Seems like he's always like banged up or hobbled or limping too, keeps coming out on the field and just keeps putting up, and he'll just bust out randomly out of nowhere and just put up a 30 or 40 point game just because he can. Cooper, is he in your lineups this week?
He's in the lineup because I think he is the go-to in this pass offense. Keep in mind, he's probably going to draw Trayvon Diggs as his shadow. So that's a difficult cover matchup, but
coming back off the ACL. So maybe he's not full Trayvon Diggs. Yeah.
You're betting on the talent of Cooper. I think he's a flex play this week. And
revenge game narrative.
Maybe. I mean,
it's in Cleveland.
I was going to say he's in Cleveland and he's been in Cleveland a couple of years. Not like he just got tricked. So, I think you can put him in your flex spot and hope that if they get a touchdown, it goes through. A passing touchdown goes through him. I'm out on Jerry Jeudy. I'm not in on Deshaun Watson. David Njoku was a league winner last year. Now, granted, that was with Joe Flacco. He was. I had him too.
Shout out to my 42nd place there in underdog, man.
No doubt. I think if you drafted Njoku, you probably drafted him as your tight end 1, so you're playing him.
Right. There you go. And I agree with that as well. And I'm actually a little more bullish on Cooper this week. I do like his potential. I think they'll, move him around as well too, to maybe shake that Diggs or just, kind of see exactly where Diggs is at. And I think they will challenge him. That is their offense right now, right? You're talking about, again, not technically an RB1 with Chubb obviously being out. So I think they force feed their number 1 star player. On Cooper, right? So I actually have him. I feel comfortable starting him as a wide receiver 3, and I'd have to really check and see where do I really have him, because he might even be sneaky up out there at that wide receiver 2. As we got closer to draft time, I just found myself kind of when I was at that spot in the draft and saw kind of Cooper's name. He was someone that I was like, all right, I actually have him ahead of DK Metcalf, and I like that matchup there. So I have him as wide receiver 16. So right behind Debo, London, Cup, and MHJ. All right. So let's see. I think we pretty much talked about everybody there. So we can go ahead and move on. Not doing too bad, but we'll try to pick it up here a little bit. So we have next game here is going to be Commanders at Bucks. Bucks favored by 3.5 with the over/under of 42.5. I have my must starts as White and Evans. Rashad White, Mike Evans. I do want to talk about, Chris Godwin. Are you finding a way here to get him into your lineups, or you want to see something first?
I actually like Chris Godwin this week. There's talks about him drawing Mike Sainstrill, if I'm saying that last name correctly, the rookie. He's back in the slot. It's a new offensive coordinator. I don't project the Commanders to be very good. The Bucs are at home. So I think you can actually play Chris Godwin this week in your flex. And in 3 wide receivers, I think you can put him in one of your wide receiver spots. In DFS, I like Chris Godwin a lot. He's a player that I'm interested in at his price point being in my lineups. And on the other side of the ball, I know we're going to talk about him, so I'm going to get us there.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't think I would play Jaden Daniels in my actual lineups unless it's super flex and you've drafted him that way. A single quarterback, I want to see it this week. But in DFS, it's 5,700. That price point's too good to potentially in a GPP. Just hope that he has a crazy rushing game if you're looking at a Baker Godwin stack on the other side of the ball. Oh, excuse me, if you're looking at a White, Godwin on the other side of the ball with a bring back of Jaden Daniels. So not in managed leagues, but in DFS, don't rule him out of your player pool at the quarterback position. Get the rushing upside.
There you go. And let's talk about the other quarterback on the other side of the ball. Washington last year gave up the most points to the quarterback position.
Yep.
Are you finding a way to get Baker into your 1 QB or Superflex QB or Superflex or QB2 spot?
Superflex, he's in there, but on the 1 QB league, I'm hoping to go elsewhere because there's just some better game environments. I don't know if Washington's going to be able to keep up. But I think if you're a guy that, a manager who streams the position, you could stream him this week because the Commanders aren't very good. So I think this is the week to do it at home, opening week. People are excited about the season. There's good vibes around it.
Yeah, I actually have Baker and Jaden Daniels 15-16 back-to-back. And I have him ahead of guys like Stafford and Geno and Purdy. Have those two ahead of those guys this week. And of course, Watson, Daniel Jones, it gets ugly after that.
Yep.
But yeah, so good stuff there. Let's talk about Brian Robinson Jr., another one of my guys. I have a lot of shares of him. Can you find a way for him to find some usage here against this Bucs defense, who's usually been pretty stout?
Yeah, I don't want him this week. He's another one of those questions in the offseason. Is it going to be B-Rob? Is it going to be Eckler? Is Eckler the third down guy? Is it more of a timeshare? I need to see it before I throw him in. And again, you just mentioned it. I like the Bucs defense at home. I don't know that they're going to keep up. And if they can't keep up, that means they're throwing. And that's where we generally tend to see Austin Eckler on the field with the pass catching upside.
There you go. And let's talk about Terry McLaurin. Obviously the departure of Jahan Dotson. It was playing tonight. Really nobody else there. I have both the Browns, Diami and Noah Brown, the new signee over there, as sits this week, along with Eckler, who you just mentioned. But Terry McLaurin, can he find a way into your flex or even wide receiver 3 spot and have
PPR leagues? I think start him because of the volume, right? And especially, like I just said, if the Buccaneers get out ahead and the Commanders have to throw, everything's going through him. To me, I've never been as high on Terry McLaurin as everyone else. We've never seen a wide receiver 1. He's had 17 quarterbacks in his career start for him. So this is hopefully the one with Jaden Daniels. We all believe it is, but based on volume alone, yeah, I think he's in there, especially in a negative game script.
There you go. And I think I mentioned it earlier, but I had Jaden Reed as my wide receiver 36. Sadly, I actually had Terry McLaurin coming into this game one spot ahead at my wide receiver 35 this week. So I have him in that wide receiver 3 flex range as well. All right. So we're sitting Zacchaeus, we're sitting Ertz, Sinnott, Bucky Irving, Trey Palmer, Cade Otton. And again, I mentioned Austin Eckler. Anything else there you want to discuss, or are you ready to move on?
I just want to say really quickly, if you are a DFS player in a cash lineup, Zach Ertz at $3,000, 36. I have to go back, but like pretty cheap punt play this week. If you're obviously loading up at the skill positions that can win you a week in cash, I generally like to punt the defense and tight end. Zach Ertz is in my cash player pool in DFS.
There you go. All right. So we will move on here to the next game. We have the Sunday night football game. The game that was, I believe, on our thumbnail here tonight. Shout out to Classic Mike pulling out the fire thumbnails, man. They've been looking sweet lately. Keep it up, Classic. But we have Rams. It's getting late, guys. It's getting late. We got to hurry this thing up. So turn into a pumpkin after an hour. Rams at Lions. We have Detroit favored by 4.5 with the 52.5 point over under. They're expecting a shootout in this game. Should be pretty easy to talk about this one. We're basically almost kind of starting everybody, obviously.
Start them all, baby.
With a 52.5 point over under, man. Get any piece of this game you can. Kyron, Puka, who is dealing with the knee, obviously okay. Goff, Cup, Gibbs, who was dealing with the hamstring, he's good to go. Amon-Ra, Laporta. We're finding all these guys a way to get them into our lineups for sure. There's no question. I'm sitting guys like Corum, Demarcus Robinson, Parkinson, Khalif Raymond. But there's a couple guys I want to talk about here, man. What do we do with Stafford, Demont, and Jameson Williams? So Stafford, again, 1 QB leagues versus Superflex. Where do you have him?
Superflex, he's in my lineup because we expect this game to be a shootout. It's in a dome. It's in Detroit, so it's not obviously it's an away game, but it's kind of a home game for Stafford. He knows the building. He knows everything that's going to happen in that crowd environment, so I think he can handle it. I worry a little bit about his back. I know he's been kind of carrying this back injury here these last 10 days. The vibes have been fine. It's not like there's, concern, but it's Stafford. He's going to slug it out and he's going to be just fine. I'm not probably starting him in 1 QB, just even though I love the game environment, I love everything about it. I'd rather start Jared Goff. You know what I mean? Like if Stafford's in my team, if I have a 1 quarterback roster and Stafford's on my roster, he was drafted as my QB2. I'm playing whoever I drafted as that high end quarterback because I probably drafted Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, a guy like that, and came back with Stafford super late.
Right. That makes sense. And yeah, so for me, I actually just made the move as you were talking to actually move Jared Goff ahead of Joe Burrow. So I moved him up to my quarterback 8 this week. I do have Stafford, as I mentioned earlier, behind Baker and Jaden Daniels at QB 17. The thing that worries me that I didn't hear you kind of talk about here is this Rams offensive line. That's the only thing that kind of worries me going up against a fantastic pass rush with the Lions, man. Obviously, we saw what they did against the Niners. You and I, of course, saw that firsthand in an amazing NFC Championship game last year. But they have some wreckers on that side of the ball. Hutchinson, of course, a couple other guys. It worries me. Will Puka and Kupp be able to develop routes downfield? Is it going to go to a quick, check game? Will Kyron be used as a little dump off? Maybe Corum does get in there as like a 3rd down type role. So I am interested to see this game. I think it's going to be awesome to watch just as a fan. But yeah, so if you can find a way, of course, to get Stafford in your lineups, I couldn't get him in my top 12. But I definitely have him as a solid, QB2 or super flex this week for sure. Again, in this potential shootout. All right. Anybody else Jameson Williams. We got to talk about JMO.
Start him.
We start him? Get him in there?
Start Monty.
All right. Xavier Worthy factor? To make you a little more comfortable after seeing Worthy go off, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Look, though, there's 2 truths.
Guys aren't conditioned yet.
There's 2 truths that we know about the Lions, right? Or the Rams right now. They have a great offense that we love and we want pieces of, and their defense is atrocious. So start them. You're starting all these guys. I would start Monty and I would start Jameson Williams and hope he gives you what he normally can give you on his big week, games is a big, long touchdown.
Okay. And that is what's in. Obviously, again, with no Aaron Donald there on that side of the ball, but, they did, make some moves over there. So, we'll see. But again, like you said, it's not expected to be great. I do have Dave Montgomery as my RB 17 here this week. So I have him as a solid RB2.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll move on, man, here to the game you and I, I'm sure, are waiting to talk about here. Good thing they put it last because we probably would have spent maybe like 30 minutes on it if we had it first. It sucks though, man. We have to wait the longest to see a game to get this Super Bowl loss taste out of our mouth. And it could even be worse just to lose against the Jets, on Monday night with everybody watching in a Super Bowl hangover. But don't let me be Debbie Downer here. Talk me off the ledge here, my guy, my fellow Niner brethren. We have Jets at Niners. Our boys here are favored by 4.5 with an over-under of 43.5 points. Obviously, the interesting offseason with Trent Williams and Ayuk and, all this stuff going on. As far as a fantasy outlook, though, we'll try to keep it to that, not get too sidetracked here. And I'm talking to myself mainly. My must-starts in this game, of course, are Brees, Wilson, and Christian McCaffrey, though he's dealing with this ankle/Achilles type injury right now, which is a little worrisome. But I still have those guys as must starts. Let's talk about the quarterbacks here in this game. Aaron Rodgers and Brock Purdy. Again, two good defenses that these guys will be going up against. Obviously,
Yep.
Rodgers coming off that Achilles, and again, we you and I know Purdy all too well. So, are there ways to get these guys in your lineups here this week?
I'm sitting both of them. I just think the defenses in this game are too good. I think if you get rushing touchdowns from CMC and Brees, then that lowers the ceiling for Rodgers and Purdy. And the truth of the Niners is the same as it's always been. When it's your week, it's your week. And if it's not that guy in your lineup, it doesn't burn you. It's just not going to be great, right? So you're starting Ayuk, you're starting Debo, you're starting Kittle, and you're doing what you always do when you draft a 49er player not named CMC. You're hoping that's the week that he is the one who has been schemed, because Shanahan will always do that, right? He knows the opponent really well, especially now with one of his former defensive coordinators coming over with the Jets.
Little
right?
solid,
So
revenge game here.
I think you're starting all of the skill position guys and sitting the quarterbacks, and like always, you're hoping for the touchdown or the big Debo run.
Yeah, and I mean, Aaron Rodgers always trying to stick it to the Niners any chance he gets, but we've always kind of got the better of him. So suck it, Aaron Rodgers. No, I'm just kidding. We'd love for you to come on the show, actually.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So just to put that out there. All right, you mentioned Ayuk, you mentioned Debo, you mentioned Kittle. So that means obviously, even though with Mike Williams looks and sounds like he's going to be on a pitch count, but looks like he will be active here this game coming off that ACL. Williams, Corley, Tyler Conklin, little interesting. I have him as sit here this week though, but those consistent, 83 targets he gets. I'm interested to see him and Rodgers to have a potential connection there as maybe the second target behind Garrett Wilson. What's your over-under on Garrett Wilson targets this game? If I over-under at 11.5.
How many times is Aaron Rodgers going to throw the ball? Because 99% of those are going.
That's why I set it at 11.5. Oh man! All right. So and then of course we're sitting Mason with CMC being active and Juwan Johnson who have him as a sit as well.
Yeah.
Juwan Johnson. No.
Juwan Jennings. Juwan Johnson plays for the Saints.
How did I get auto-corrected on that? That's messed up. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Third and Juwan. We can't do that. I got to fix it on the show notes. All right, so there we go. All right, so good stuff, man. All right, so let's get to this live Q&A, man. That was awesome. Those are the 8 games. Can't wait for Sunday, man, to get this thing going, get some red zone going, and just watching 3-4 games at one time. I mean, I'm just getting so excited, man, after especially seeing these last 2 games. So let's go for it, man. So I'll pick a question, you pick a question. So we'll scroll back up to the top here and get to your guys' questions. If you do have any other questions, make sure you drop them in now, and we'll try to get to as many as we can before we call it a night. It is getting a little late here. So we have Josh here in the chat saying start Caleb or Dak. It's a 16-man PPR team. His team's Dak, Caleb, Achane, Zeke, CD, DJ Moore, Njoku, and Tank Dell. So you starting Caleb or Dak in that situation?
I'm still starting Dak. I know the matchup's a little bit, I won't say easier for Caleb, but I think it's rookie player, first NFL game. Dak's been there. He's done it even on the road in Cleveland. I'd still start Dak.
That's where these people are looking at my show notes and my rankings, which they are on our website, getrightff.com. If you guys want to check out our rankings that are up there. I have Dak as my QB 13 and Caleb as my QB 14. So back to back. So Dak to me as well. Do you have one, or you want to pull up the next one?
Javonte, Brian Robinson, flexing on PPR. So basically a standard league. I would play Javonte because I believe it's the more likely of the two to score the touchdown. Jaden Daniels could siphon it. It could go a bunch of different ways. Again, we talked about that game. I don't know that there's a ton of touchdowns there for the Commanders on the road in Tampa. So I'll start Javonte in a standard league and hope he falls in the end zone.
If he's going to score a touchdown, it has to be like on the first drive. They have to just get like a good game script and get it in there and just get a nice rush in there for Brian Robinson. I technically have Javonte Williams at 27 and Brian Robinson Jr. at 29. Just because, again, that matchup with Seattle there. And like you mentioned, I think he will get the touches as much as I don't like it. I almost want to just change it because I feel like I need to stay on brand with Brian Robinson, and how I feel about Javonte. But I guess push come to shove, I do have Javonte ahead here. So, although I'm rooting for Brian Robinson and have him in several places, so I hope he still scores either way. So we'll go to the next question here, and you can look for the next one here after Johnny's. He says, in PPR, are we still starting with Burrow, or should he risk it and go Caleb Williams this weekend? So we kind of talked about this at the top of the show. Missing T. Higgins, potential pitch count for Jamar Chase. Might have to play Burton and Yoshiva. No tight end really there with Gesicki maybe. But what are you doing here, Burrow or Caleb?
I mean, if Chase is there, even on a pitch count, you're playing Burrow. I mean, I think if this is week 2 and we see something, if we see enough from Caleb, then I would actually start Caleb, because I don't like the weapons. And again, New England's awful, and you probably get it done on the ground. But I want to see at least 1 week from these rookie quarterbacks, especially in a single QB league. If it's super flex, then we're not even having this discussion. But in a single QB, I need at least to see 1 week before I'm putting him in the lineup.
Exactly. Again, I have Williams as my QB 14, so just outside that QB 1, range in a 12-person league. And I did just move Burrow behind Goff, but I still have Burrow as my QB 10. So I'm definitely Burrow over Caleb as well.
Yeah.
You got another one, or?
Yeah. Similar vein. What should I expect about DJ Moore this week? I think he's probably the go-to target this week. I like this. I like his week. I like his upside. It's the Titans, so they want to throw a ton. Brian Callahan coming over from Cincinnati as the new head coach. Cincinnati threw the ball at the second highest rate, pass rate over expectation last year. We don't love the running backs. Apparently, they're coming out today even saying that they expect a 50-50 split between Spears and Pollard, but both of them are pass catchers, meaning I think if this game has points in it, it's going to be points through the air. I think Levis should be able to throws a good ball. He may not be the best quarterback, but yeah, I think DJ Moore is going to be good this week. And if there is a touchdown, I think it goes his way.
Yeah, and with that said, Keenan Allen is dealing with that heel injury. Obviously, Dunze is the only other target there. Obviously, we like the talent, but again, his first game, still just getting used to being a rookie and all that kind of stuff. I think that he will lean heavily on DJ Moore this week, so I am comfortable starting him as my wide receiver 2, I believe. I have him at wide receiver 20. So yeah, he's kind of right in that middle of that wide receiver 2 range for me this week. So next question we have here is from our guy here, eWeek 2K. He says, need a RB2. He has Swift, Ford, or Chase Brown. It's full PPR, so sounds like one of those hero RB builds. I have several benches, at least on mock drafts, and a lot of best ball that have these these exact guys as my RB 3, 4s, and 5s. Giving you a little time here to think about it. Who do you have over Swift, Ford, and Chase Brown?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love Jerome Ford, the Cowboys defense, I mentioned him earlier when we got to that game. I think he still is a start based on a volume play. But if you're looking at an RB2, I think Swift has the most upside against Tennessee versus Ford. Even with that volume, the Dallas defense is a much better defense than Tennessee. It's close, but I think I would probably play Swift.
Yeah, I actually have Ford here as my highest ranked RB at RB 22 this week. You guys know he is my guy, so might be kind of wishing that maybe more than thinking about it, processing that way. But no, I mean, again, I just like that opportunity there. Again, his work in the passing game, I think, can give him a nice floor there for you. The thing I'm worried about with Swift, of course, is the touchdowns.
Right.
We've seen the RB2 behind Swift be the kind of touchdown leader basically every stop he's been in the league. And so they did not trade Khalil Herbert, so he is still there and could be a thing. Again, Roshan Johnson's also a bigger back as well. And so, he could be used in short yardage and goal line. So we'll see what happens here. But yeah, I go Ford. Not too far behind him, though. I have Swift at my RB 24, so it's not as bad, I guess, as maybe I made it let it out to be. And I actually have a bigger gap between those two guys and Chase Brown, who I do still have as a potential flex option here as my RB 36. But I could easily see myself getting him like ahead of like Brian Robinson and Zamir White here with Higgins being out. But the thing that's keeping Brown down for me, it's New England. So they may not have to be in that passing type situation really. And again, I think it's a little higher Zach Moss game, as you mentioned, who I don't have too much higher than him at 33, but I might tinker with that a little bit as well. So next question, he says flex spot full PPR, Ridley or JSN.
Calvin Ridley. He's the one in that offense. JSN is the 2/3. I think if the Bears and Titans are close, they're still going to be. Give me Ridley.
Okay, I think I'm Ridley as well. I would like to consult my sheet, but my thought process is just basically what you said. Now, had Tyler Lockett been out completely, or for some reason he is ruled out late, let's say that happens last minute. Shout out to Classic Mike at the Active and Active show on Sunday mornings. If he ends up being out and we have the same question, Ridley or JSN, would that tilt it for you a little bit?
It depends. I mean, Jalen Johnson's probably going to be covering Ridley, I would think. We still don't know what DeAndre Hopkins' status is. He says he's playing, but I haven't heard something definitively that says like he's full go and I know he's active, but what is his health status? If Tyler Lockett's out, it does flip it to JSN.
Okay, there we go. Wanted to get that out there for you because I'm high on JSN. I'm actually higher on JSN. I don't think I have much Ridley just based on where he's going, and I try to make a little rule for myself this year to not just draft guys on bad offenses. Like it was just a very simple, basic thing that sometimes when you kind of do this too much, you get caught up in the numbers and all this other stuff. Sometimes it's just as simple as just draft guys on good teams that are going to put up points, and sometimes that's all you need. So go ahead.
Yeah, could Jaleel McLaughlin have a big day because Bo Nix is checked down Charlie? I just don't. Seattle's defense is still really good. We don't know what that's going to be. So could he have a big day? Maybe. Will he? Probably not. I'm really, really interested in this game to see what his usage is and snap share is compared to Javonte and what that looks like going forward.
All right, there we go. And we talked about it earlier, so I won't stick up too much of that. But as you probably saw in the screenshot that I sent in our group chat, Jaleel McLaughlin, 40% owned on Underdog, my number one drafted guy on Underdog. So if he hits big guys, you guys might be seeing a lot more of me doing this basically all day long would be awesome. So Robert, when we were talking about the Washington game, we actually did not mention Luke McCaffrey, the brother of our guy, CMC over there. No Luke McCaffrey love this week, Phil?
No, not yet. I mean, it's the vibes and the camp reports haven't been good. Then all of a sudden they trade Jahan Dotson and it's still not good. And then this week it's like, oh, he's in the starting lineup and he's number 2 on the depth chart. Well, let's see what it looks like because it's Terry McLaurin and then fill in the blank.
There you go. We got Wicked in the house. What's up, Wicked man? He says, I had to show these well-informed bearded gentlemen some love tonight. I can't believe I'm actually included in a conversation that says bearded gentleman, which is why I had to bring this comment up. So, my first time ever in my life growing out basically needing facial hair. I've been in sales my whole life, so it's always been the clean shaven, kind of everyday type of look. I've had like a goatee or a chin strap here and there, but not this full-on beard. So appreciate that. All right, enough of that. Let's see. What else do we got? Do you have another question in there? I see there's a couple more.
This is not because I got a shout out. This is simply because I wanted to bring this up.
Please do.
On my show on Thursday night, I went through Underdog, higher or lower, and I had 6 bets that I gave my take on. Travis Kelce was my free square, obviously, is just a half of a yard. That was a hit. So we won there. Derrick Henry with an over rushing touchdown. We took the over. That was a yes. We hit there.
Whatever the Saquon bet was.
We hit that. Yeah. Rashee Rice, 61.5 receiving yards. I took the over. That was a yes. Mahomes, 1.5 passing touchdowns. I took the over. That was a no. Saquon, anytime TD score. I took the over. That was a yes and yes and a yes. And Devonta Smith on the last play of the game, 11.15 fantasy points. We took the over. That was a yes. So 5-1 this week.
Nice.
If you played that card, hopefully you did, and you can Venmo me a couple bucks for a beer. Appreciate you.
There we go. Throw us a super chat, man. We'll get there. Have a coffee on you guys now. Good stuff, dude. That's fire right there. Make sure you guys keep checking that out. Yep, we got Danny in here, man. Go ahead, read it off. And Danny, hopefully you hit that subscribe button for us, man. We'd appreciate it.
Swift or Mostert in full PPR. Give me Mostert. Even in full PPR, give me Mostert. Yeah. The game environment, the Dolphins offense, he's still the starter. Let's go, Dolphins. Fire it up. Give me Mostert all day.
Yeah. Until I see him not scoring like the most touchdowns and being the RB2 in the league, I'll
Yep.
believe it while he's healthy. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll go Mostert. I mean, they're basically the same kind of. I mean, if you want to talk about injury history, they're basically the same guy. Just
Yep.
Mostert's been healthier, more recent, and produced higher, more
100%.
recent. So there you go. Pretty easy. You got another one there?
Yeah, with Higgins out, who would you plug in? Odunze or Ridley? It's Ridley in PPR. I love Rome. Rome's going to be a great player in Dynasty. We've got tons and tons of shares. I need a week. Demario Douglas, Keon Coleman, BTJ. I'm going to let you go first because I think I know what I want here, but go ahead.
So interestingly enough, I'm sure everyone in the audience is probably saying and thinking we're probably both going Keon Coleman. But interestingly enough, give me Brian Thomas Jr. in this Miami shootout with an option here. Get him into your flex lineup over these guys. I want to see it with Coleman first, but give me a little BTJ in there. Get a little saucy this week. But I mean, we all know Coleman has the potential highest upside being attached to the best, quarterback and all the targets and all that.
Our brains are, it's like we're in sync, man.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Give me BTJ. If they're not playing Miami in this game where they're going to have to keep up, it's Keon Coleman, obviously, but give me BTJ this week in week 1. So,
and because I've kind of seen it in the I've kind of seen it, and that's what I mean. They kept running Coleman out with the second string. Once they pulled the starters, Coleman was still out there. Like they needed him to still get more reps. And we talked about this. Coleman wasn't a high drafted or highly touted prospect. It was his landing spot and the quarterback and opportunity and situation is what made him fly up our draft boards, not necessarily the talent. And we didn't see it flash in the preseason, but we saw Brian Thomas Jr. flash here in this offense. So, and again, with this potential shootout, with this going against this depleted Dolphins defense, man, give me some BTJ.
I'm with you. Last one here. 12-team league. He has Jordan Love, Saquon Barkley, and Bijan. Woo! Drake London, Devonta Smith, Evan Ingram, flexing Christian Watson. On the bench is our boy Jaden Daniels, Gus Bus, beep beep, Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman, T. Higgins, Luke McCaffrey, Darnell Mooney. What do I do if Love has an ACL tear? So as we've been doing the show, I have Jordan Love in my main dynasty league. It is a start 2 quarterback league, so not even super flex. You got to put 2 guys out there each week. I have Anthony Richardson and I have Jordan Love. So I have been checking this the entire show. Bless you, Rasta, times 2.
It was 3 actually.
So 3. There you go. Right?
Yeah. It was a tough one there.
Yeah. I just saw a tweet that said it is a sprained MCL and or a high ankle sprain, but we'll see how accurate that is. So we don't know. Obviously, I would 100% assume they're going to be doing if they've not already done an MRI, but what facilities like in Brazil. The question is, what do you do if Love has an ACL tear? Nothing. You start Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, you just roll with him, man.
You drafted him for a reason. We expect the rushing upside, like any other quarterback, to be there. You've seen Justin Fields be a QB1, and he's not even a starter on his own team, but his rushing upside for fantasy because of the scoring makes him a valuable play, and that's obviously what we expect Jaden Daniels to do with better passing accuracy.
Yeah. The good thing is you'll get to see it for a week before you have to throw him in your lineup next week. So it might be more of a next week issue. At least right now, you got pretty much a full game out of Love at this point. And let's just hope it is an MCL, which is about 2 weeks, maybe even a week. Put a brace on it with the quarterback. He's not real mobile anyway. So let's hope it's just that. High ankle quarterback. Maybe he gets back in 4 weeks. Typically 4 to 6 weeks on a high ankle. But again, he's not a mobile guy running. The biggest thing with that high ankle at a quarterback, you have to make sure he can protect himself.
Right.
That's the biggest thing, not trying to get, usage out of his foot. Just you want him to be able to at least be able to move around in the pocket.
And this lineup, at least what he's sharing with us here, is there's so much ceiling at your running back position that if you've got a little lower ceiling at the quarterback room, you should still be able to win plenty of games with Saquon, Bijan, Drake London, and Devonta Smith in that group. And apparently the next man in the gold jacket, Xavier Worthy, I think they actually already gave him the gold jacket. I think they did that after the game in the locker room.
Man, it's saucy over there, huh? You're defending. I could tell people were coming at you for that take all off season.
I got hit up so many DMs today. Like, I told you he was that dude. Like, bro got 3 touches of the football. Can you take a deep
scored
breath,
on 2 of them though? He scored on 2. That's explosive.
Right. And I just want to say this. Have you ever heard of a player named Sammy Watkins? Because I'm pretty sure he played for the Chiefs, and I'm pretty sure he had monster week ones for the Chiefs, and he's sitting on the couch. So I'm not saying Xavier Worthy's going to sit on the couch. I like Xavier Worthy. I think he's a good football player. It was evident last night. I'm not ready to put him next to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson at the 101, 102 for the wide receivers coming off the board next year because the kid scored 2 touchdowns on 3 touches.
Let's just pump the brakes just a smidge, right?
Just a bit.
Just
Take a big, giant.
Just be happy that he got that. Right now, he has some value. So if you do have him in Dynasty, maybe you could sell him. We'll get into that, on Wednesday.
I feel like the captain of the police squad and Bad Boys 2. Woo-saw. Woo-saw.
Yeah, well, I think it was actually Martin Lawrence is who was doing that, right?
Well, I think they're all doing it at some point.
Yeah, at the end point. Yeah, I think everyone was doing it. Yeah,
they're saying you got to go woo-saw something. Yeah,
yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Man, that ages us, especially if you're talking about I'm sure you're talking about that's the original Bad Boys. Like that's not even was that Bad Boys 2?
Oh, Bad Boys 2.
That was Bad Boys 2.
But the OG Bad Boys is anyway.
Even older, right? So
even
anyway,
older.
just aging ourselves here a bit. Sorry, guys. Wicked said he loves the controversy. Let's go, Rasta. So there we go. Yeah, we're not going to always disagree over here, although it is going to be interesting because Phil and I do think a lot alike. So whereas Classic and I were usually kind of on 2 sides of the coin, which makes it interesting. So when you and I do disagree, it's always a good little conversation that we have. So I'm looking forward to it here this year. So last news, and we didn't talk about this actually at the top of the show as far as updates from Wednesday. The big thing lingering here, and make sure you guys tune in on Sunday to Classic's active and active list. This is going to be one of those big news items. Is Russell Wilson going to be active dealing with the a calf issue that he's dealing with right now? So are we picking up Fields right now just to see? Maybe this is something that Peanut Butter here. Do you go pick up Fields in this situation if Love is out?
Let me make this very, very clear. Okay, and Kendall's not here tonight, so I'm going to say something about him really quickly in a positive way. I have never seen a man plant a flag as hard as I have seen him plant something on Anthony Richardson. This dude is in on Richardson. I think you have to call your shot and be very confident if you're going to go pick up Justin Fields off the waiver wire, because that means you're dropping someone. And whoever you're dropping in week 1 is still a player that you drafted. It's not like this is someone you picked up off the waiver wire you can drop later. If you drafted TJ Hawkinson and forgot to move him into your IR spot and you have a free square, sure. But no, this offense doesn't project well. It's Arthur Smith. They don't have a ton of weapons.
He's terrible, but it's still like a top 12 QB.
I know. It's not.
Just last year.
I like Atlanta's defense, and Atlanta's at home. No.
Yeah, that defense
stay
is
away.
a little better this year.
Yeah, stay away.
But maybe more specifically for Peanut, if we do get news by the time waivers run, and that's who's out there, maybe you take a flyer on him. Let's say someone like, Cousins. I mean, was he drafted a lot in 1 QB leagues, you think? Maybe someone like Cousins might be on the wire. Like, would you take Cousins or Fields, like the upside with Fields, or would you take a more potentially solid, safer QB in Cousins Cousins type?
So here's the question. Cousins is the starter. What if Russell Wilson is fine and all of a sudden next week it's like, oh, the calf's good to go? He's still the starter. He's getting his job right back.
Okay.
I mean, Justin Fields has to set the world. Put it this way. I believe the only way, if Justin Fields is a starter because Russ is out, I believe the only way he is the starter next week in week 2 is if Russ is hurt or if they just straight up go win the football game. And I don't think they're going to win the game. I think Atlanta's going to win that game.
There you go. All right. You heard it here. There it is. All right. Well, good stuff there, man. I forgot the other scrolling banner across the bottom. You guys can get a few minutes of that while we do this here, man. But Phil, again, I appreciate you, man, for coming out here with us tonight. Of course, that live Q&A section was brought to us by our boys over at TrophySmack.com. So if you are looking to celebrate your fantasy football championship with, a ring or a belt, a chain, one of those Kirk Cousins chains, or just a regular old trophy that's all customizable, make sure you guys go check out the link down in the description to TrophySmack.com. Check out all the different customizable options that they have and take your league to the next level. And when you do, make sure you use that promo code GetRight. and it'll help support the channel, man. Get yourself another one of these. Again, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button for us as well, so we can get closer to that 2,000 subscriber mark. So again, we appreciate all you guys doing that there. So you know the drill, Phil. I'm going to turn it over here to you, man. Again, appreciate you, coming and joining here with me tonight in this new schedule. I'm looking forward to it here this season. So tell the folks, though, what you got going on over on your channel, where they can find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so obviously I'm a part of Get Right. Ross and I will be here every Friday night holding it down with these sit-start matchups. West Coast, Best Coast. But you can find me on Thursday nights at 4 p.m. during the season. That's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And I will be taking you through DFS, best ball. If that can work, my show is very, very in the offseason, heavily Dynasty. If I can work in some trade targets during the season of guys you should be looking at on the Dynasty, through a Dynasty lens, I'll obviously do that. If you've got questions about your Dynasty roster, certain things you're thinking about, where should I be looking for some value? Should I be doing some trades? You can DM at P Ruskin on Sleeper. I will always make sure to either feature the question on the show or get back to you on my own time. And the sad part, Rasta, I don't have a show this week. I will be traveling for work. So I am, but the good news is I told this to the folks on my show the other day. I'll make the announcement here. I am working to add an in-season podcast only that would be available only on Spotify and Patreon. And that'll probably release on Tuesday nights. So that'll be just totally different content, separate than what you'll get on the live show each and every Thursday. So hit that like and subscribe button. You can catch me at the Extra Point on 4 p.m. Pacific on YouTube. Obviously, you can you can also listen along on Spotify and Patreon.
There you go. So trying to up our little production game there just a bit. So that's good stuff there, man. Again, love having you here on Get Right. Of course, make sure you guys do support all of our channels here. Make sure you guys go check out Kendall's channel over at the Fantasy Football Tavern. The links are down in the description. And of course, our boy Tycoon over on the Fantasy Boardroom. So yeah, other than that, man, you ready to call it a show? I think we're right at that hour 38 mark again from the last time. So we'll try to button it up, but man, that was a good show. I enjoyed it.
A good one. I'm going to be up for like 16 more hours until they release a Jordan Love update because I need to know what's going on.
I know what's going on. Start sending offers out, right? Here we go. Seriously. Fantasy is upon us, man. We got a little bit of everything, man. So here we go. All right, guys, from all of us over here at Get Right, man, hopefully you guys had a good first 2 days. Hopefully you weren't playing against Saquon and you had Saquon in your matchups here tonight. From all of us, man, from Dustin, for Frank, for Classic, for Tycoon, for Kendall, my boy Phil, and of course for me, Rasta. Hope you guys enjoy your Friday night. We will be back here on Monday with our overreaction, give out some game balls, and of course go over our top waiver wire targets. So we'll look forward to seeing you then. Having a good night. Enjoy.
Marking nothing, but I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go